Oh, good. Okay, Kurt says you can see it. Okay, so welcome to Facebook Advertising Part 2 of 4. This is Robert Stanley, and you are here because you signed up on the More Customers Faster site, I assume, or maybe somebody forwarded this to you. Who knows? Anyway, thank you for being here, and let's do a really quick review of what we talked about last week in part one. So, part one, we just talked about creating ads and the different ad types. I think I covered the fact that I really only use two types of advertising with Facebook, mostly because I'm driving traffic to external websites. So, um, website clicks and website conversions are the primary focus for my campaigns. We also talked about targeting, audiences and creating your avatar. So if you're not familiar with that concept, you'll probably want to look at last week's training. And really, it's funny. I just did a workshop in Phoenix, a full day workshop where we went through this whole process, and uh, it's amazing how much you can learn by really, really, really spending time thinking about your target client and going through that process, and you can reduce your advertising costs when you do that effectively. We also talked about ad performance. How can you tell if something is doing good or bad relative to what you're seeing? I mean, if it's your first time ever doing advertising, it's kind of difficult to know whether or not you're paying too much or too little, that kind of thing. So I provided some general guidelines last week uh, as they relate to my experiences. Obviously, there are other people that have different experiences, but it gives you a baseline to reference. And then we talked about the difference between sidebar ads and timeline ads, and ways to manage those. We'll talk more about that today. We're going to go a little bit deeper and talk about campaign structure, campaign strategies. Now, fortunately for me, uh, I didn't do this training before Facebook just released their big update. So they just released an update that in the way campaigns are structured and ads are structured. We'll talk about that. We're going to talk about custom audiences a little bit. And we're also going to talk about conversion tracking. This is really, really important. I mean, if you're doing anything other than trying to get likes on a page or something like that, conversions are the key to understanding, where to spend more money or turn things off, save money. So with that, let's get right into the campaign structure and stuff like that. So this is a slide from Facebook for Business. If you look at the new campaign structure, basically it used to only be the green and the yellow there. So there was just campaigns and then ads. Now they allow you to break it down a little further and do campaigns, ad sets, and then ads. Different people have different ideas on how you should structure your ad sets. I will share with you my approach to this and why I approach it this way, and then also how I break up my campaigns. So when I do campaigns, and I did this before they even had the whole ad set thing, um, you know, I do a campaign by type of advertisement. So, and then of course, destination or project or whatever. So I'll do a campaign. Let's say I was doing a campaign selling running shoes. I would do campaign of sidebar running shoes and timeline running shoes and mobile running shoes. And so each of those campaigns would be for running shoes, but I would do one for sidebar, one for mobile, one for timeline, even though it's all for the same product or project. I never mix them in. I've seen, Facebook actually kind of does that by default. If you create a campaign, they kind of automatically check the box for all three of those things. And it makes it difficult to track which one's performing best. And more importantly, it kind of blurs the numbers together. So mobile advertising is typically a little less expensive, but you're not going to get great, offsite conversions. Sidebar is less expensive, and timeline is typically more expensive, but higher converting when done properly. And so it blurs all your numbers together, and so you don't really know which one is driving what without having to run reports and dig in. So I prefer to separate those out, and I'll kind of show you that here in a minute. Um, for ad sets, what I like to do is set it up for audiences. So in our example before of a sidebar ad for running shoes, I'd have an ad set for men, and then an ad set for women, or an ad set for a target audience. So if I'm targeting people who like the fan page Nike, I might create an ad set called Nike. Or if you really want to get granular, you might have an ad set called Nike Women and Nike Men. It just really depends on how you want to break it down. And what you'll find when you do some reporting, extended reporting, which we'll talk about briefly, you can even determine which of those folks are most responsive, right? And so the more you break down your ad sets into little chunks, the easier it's going to be for you to see what's really performing well. So inside of the ad sets, is where you put your ads. So you're going to put an image or multiple images. You're going to put the ad copy, which would be the text that goes around the image, and then you're going to basically do ad testing. Now, personally, I don't put more than 2 images into an ad set. In the past, when it was only campaigns, I would just put 2 images to a campaign. And if I wanted to test more, I'd just do another campaign. Um, I've heard strategies on this new variation where you do 1 image per ad set if you want to split test 50-50 which one's doing the best. Because if you put 2 images into an ad set, what will happen is Facebook will automatically send the most traffic to the one that is converting the best or driving the most clicks, has the best performance. So it'll kind of not allow your second image to get enough traffic to see whether or not it's really going to work. So this is kind of how structurally I would do a campaign. So I do like campaign sidebar, and I'd have ad set 1 and ad set 2, image 1, image 2, image 1, image 2. Now, typically the images for both of those ad sets when I'm doing a campaign are the same images. So um, if ad set 1 was women and ad set 2 was men, I might have different images just based upon, you just kind of have to know your avatar. So this goes back to what I was saying before. When you really define who your perfect target customer is, what their likes and interests are, then that's going to drive some of how you structure your campaigns. But basically, this is what you do. Set up your campaign sidebar or campaign timeline or campaign mobile, and then have ad sets based on your target audience, your demographic, or custom audience, and then images underneath there, and no more than 2, in my opinion. And like I said before, a lot of people are even just doing 1. Um, so, if to kind of back up what I was saying, if you see on the far left there is the mobile news feed, then you have the desktop news feed, and then you have the right-hand column ads. And this is just comparing the differences in some of the changes they made. But those are the different formats. Each one of those things are going to be their own campaign using the structure that I discussed so far. So when you're in your actual Facebook advertising account, this is kind of how it looks. They've got campaigns, ad sets, and then ads, right? And so you can set those up in the fashion that I just described, and then you'll see kind of like what I have here with the naming. I do, SD meeting March, EXT timeline, and then EXT sidebar. Um, the reason I put EXT, that's what I use for my similar audiences, which we'll talk about here in a minute. So if I create a custom audience from my email list, I call that internal or INT. And if I have Facebook create a similar audience, then I use EXT, just so that I know. So when I'm actually doing custom audience advertising, and I'll do sidebar and timeline uh, external. So those are 2 different campaigns, and then I'll do sidebar and timeline internal. So for just one um, promotion, I'm really creating 4 campaigns, and and a lot of images as well. Probably the most difficult thing with Facebook advertising, of course, is getting graphics and editing your images and so on. Now, One of the things that you should consider doing when you run an ad early on is to not be super specific as far as demographics are concerned, because you can actually pull data out later that tells you what the responsive demographic is. I think a lot of us as marketers, we make the mistake, marketers and business owners, we make the mistake of thinking that we know what our demographic is. And the fact of the matter is, time is passing and our audience is changing. So if you're running a new campaign, I think it's a good idea to open it up to all age groups. It's arguable whether or not you'd ever want to show an ad to somebody under the age of 25, because that group may not be your target demographic and probably don't have money. But it's always good to just open it wide up in the beginning, and then look at your data and see who's actually responding. So here's an example where you can do this demographic report. And oh, I'm sorry. This, if you click on the edit columns in your ad account, then this is what you'll see, and you'll actually have all these, that far left side where it says column sets. They're kind of pre-arranged breakdowns of data. So you can do a geographic report. So if you're advertising to the entire United States, you could find out, what cities or states have the most responsive users to your offer. Um, Conversions is another one, and I usually use demographic, geographic, and then conversion. Those are really the ones that I care about the most. So if you go and select one of those, then it'll give you all of these data columns, and you can now see which group is responding the most. So at the very bottom, you see 18 to 24, male and female, had 0 clicks on this particular set of campaigns, and the majority of the clicks were 25 to 34 male and female, and then 55 to 64 female, and 65 plus male. So really, if you were to look at this, it's probably safe to say, well, we'll just run our ads to anyone over the age of 25, both men and women, because that kind of covers the whole group there, right? Um, what you may want to do once you have data like this is do 25 plus women and 25 plus men, and create different ad sets for them, and then see what kind of images they respond to, because men and women will respond to different images inside of Facebook, and so that's worth testing. Um, they've changed your custom audience thing now. So when you click on the audiences now, there's actually a button on the top right to create an audience. It used to be you could only create an audience inside of the Power Editor. Now you cannot create a similar audience in the standard editor. You still need Power Editor. If you're going to use Power Editor, you also have to have Google Chrome, because it's basically a Chrome app. One of the things that's on here that we won't talk about today, but we'll talk about in the future, is the custom audience from your website feature. That's definitely worth looking into. It's really just kind of like retargeting. But if you're going to upload a list, yeah, I don't know why the guys from MailChimp managed to get their product in here. Maybe Facebook invested in them. But uh, what I typically do is a data file, which means you just upload a Excel file, a CSV, a comma delimited file of your email addresses, phone numbers, etc. Now, one of the things that you should be aware of is that they do have some terms of service type stuff associated with custom audiences. So basically, if you were to read this, they're saying that you can't put people in here who don't know who you are, or um, and mostly, actually, most of this uh, verbiage in here really says you can't go in and reverse engineer and try and figure out how we're coming up with our similar audience information. You're also not allowed to go in here and try and figure out, anything that we're doing related to user IDs. They don't want you reverse engineering anything of theirs. So when you go to upload, though, you're going to give it a name and a description. A description is not required. Um, the name can be whatever list it is. Typically, what I see others doing and what I do myself are emails, user IDs, which are the Facebook IDs, and then phone numbers. Phone numbers are not very good. You don't match very many of your list, but you will match some. So, so the one that tends to work the best are user IDs, right? Because they're a given, they're known, and then emails. And for most of us, if you have a client, a local client, or an old list of customers or something like that, email is the easiest one to do. And I've done this, and I tend to do this for a lot of my clients. We just get their email list. I prefer to get the buyer's list if possible, and use that as the primary starting point. So if you or your client has a list of email addresses of people who have purchased something in the past, those are your best customers. You're going to want to put them in there in their own separate list, and then you can put in another list, another custom audience that maybe is just all emails. And then the second part of this is um, the similar audience. So if you want, so this you'll see in this example here, I've got all with names. Well, this was a my list that I had first name and last name and email address. I've got other ones that have full physical address, etc. And typically what you'll see when you upload a list, an email list, is about 50%. At least that's been my experience. About 50% of whatever you upload will actually show up in your custom audience. So this shows 3,600. I probably had 6 or 7,000, 8,000 emails that I uploaded in here to get to 3,600. And then you'll see the all with names look alike US similarity. So when you ask Facebook, hey, will you please go find other people with Facebook accounts that look, act, and feel like this list? Basically, this is extremely powerful, particularly if you have a very small list of clients. I think your data file needs to have at least 500 matches for them to create a similar audience. Um, that's something you can experiment with, but you'll need at least 500. So what that says is that you'll probably need at least 1,000 emails so that you end up with 500. And then when you create the similarity, they'll match the profiles. And so the similarity list is based on their own algorithms. So that's part of the terms of service thing that they say, you can't try and figure out how we create the similarity list and so on. But when they create that similarity list, I mean, look at that. It turned 3,600 people into 2 million. And it's been my experience that it works quite well to, match the interests and profiles of the people that are already on your list. So it gives you a great way to get in front of similar type clients or prospects. And another benefit with custom audiences is that it's typically cheaper to advertise to your custom audience than it is to just go and create a target audience by just using their advertising tools, search tools. So to do that, you do have to be in the Power Editor. Again, you have to have the Chrome browser up to use it. And you'll see up there on the top right where there's the number 1, there's Add Tools. You can click on that to open up any custom audiences that you have. And then once the custom audience list shows up on your screen like this, you'll see you click on your original audience that you uploaded, your original list, and then you'll see where number 2 is there, create lookalike audience. Now that won't work if your list isn't big enough. And so here's part of what you'll notice here is that we had a list on this particular account. We had a list of 400 in the custom audience, and out of that we were managed to get almost 2 million again. So uh, turn a pretty small list into a pretty significant size list, and then be able to advertise them relatively inexpensively compared to kind of starting on your own. Now, for tracking conversions, and I see that you guys have some questions in here. I'll get to those at the end once I get through all of the topics here. When tracking conversions, basically, you click on, oh, I have the wrong thing in there. Not the audiences. You want to click on the conversion tracking, which is right above the power editor there. Um, so in the conversion tracking section, when you click on that, you'll get this option to create a conversion pixel. And when you name it and you select which one of these things it is, whether it's an add to cart or other conversion or registration, it's just how they classify it when you're using the reporting tools. But so anyway, you create this. It's going to give you a different code for each pixel you create. So you might have one for checkouts, and then you could create another one for leads or whatever, and it'll track those separately. Now, the issue most of the time is that you now have to put this on your website on the thank you page or whatever the pages they go after in terms of the action. Now, most of you know that I use WordPress almost exclusively. There are some free tools out there. Uh, the challenge with most of the tools that allow you to add JavaScript or analytics is that they're site wide. So you add this JavaScript onto your WordPress site or whatever, and it ends up on the entire website. Well, you really only want the conversion pixel to be on the thank you page. So you put if you put this particular plugin in your WordPress website, it's called Facebook Pixel Conversions for WordPress. What'll happen is down at the bottom of the page, you'll see what you see there on the right, which is this Facebook conversion code box. You just check the top. Says whether or not you want the code inserted, and then paste in your Facebook code in there, and then that turns that page into a trigger or a thank you page, right? So if this is the page they see after they sign up for your free ebook or whatever, that's what's going to trigger the lead. And then the next thing you have to do once you have the code installed is obviously run some traffic and then find out what happened. So again, you can go back into Facebook, the reporting section, edit the columns, select the conversions option, and then hits the save button, and then you'll get something that looks kind of like this. Although it has a lot more columns than this, I reordered them for you so you could see what was going on here. So you can see, on one campaign, each of those are a different campaign. On one campaign, we had 43 conversions, another one 40, and so on and so forth. You can see how much we spent and the cost per conversion. So we've got, one campaign here where our cost per conversion is $4.35, and another where the cost per conversion is $46.95. Obviously, the $4 one seems more attractive, but it really depends on what that conversion means, right? If the $46 cost per conversion means they're actually spending money, and the $4 one means all I'm getting is an email address, then that's what it's taking. It's cost me $4 just to get an email. So you have to take those into consideration, but it really does allow you to compare how your ads are performing in terms of what you're getting out of it. And I've seen a highly targeted ad convert an email lead for as little as 40 to 50 cents and as high as $2 in some cases just for an email lead. Just depends on how good your targeting is and how high your click-through rate is and all that kind of thing. And so a lot of what drives these costs is your overall ad performance. So what that requires is that you be diligent in your advertising management. You kind of have to be in there a couple times a week, messing with things, tweaking, tuning, and so on. And so next week we're going to talk about, in part 3, we're going to talk about something called unpublished posts. Some of you might be familiar with that concept, and how you can get likes and signups and leads all at the same time by using unpublished posts. So we'll extend what we've talked about today and get into unpublished posts. You do have to use the Power Editor to do that. We'll talk about some advanced optimization topics and landing pages. So, when it comes to optimizing your Facebook campaign, there's more involved than, just putting up an ad and getting clicks. There are a lot of little pieces. And, in my past workshop, the workshop I did this past Monday, became very apparent to me that it requires additional explanation and so on so that people really understand all the components. For those of you that are in California or will be in California this next month, I'm doing another workshop upcoming. Let's see, trying to think. No, April 17th is actually a free event. I'm actually going to be speaking at. So this isn't the actual workshop date. So I'll have to get that updated for you. But the April 17th, I'll be speaking at a local marketing event here on this exact topic, and I'll mostly be talking about case studies and stuff like that. So if you can make it into the San Diego area on the 17th, that would be awesome. Okay, so with that, let me look at your questions here. I saw that we had some. Take this back there. So, Kurt. Okay, so I had some questions about how to get in the members area. So most of the replays, so I'm still in the process of finishing the members area. So for now, the replays are all inside of the YouTube channel. So you go to youtube.com/ more customers faster. I'll just type that in the box for you guys. HTTP. YouTube. And you can subscribe to the YouTube channel, and it should even notify you when I post the new videos. Send all. There we go. So the members area will be done soon. Kurt was asking about UIDs. Do all scrapers that grab UIDs for custom audiences, are they against the Facebook terms of service? I don't know, because I don't know how all the scrapers work. I know that some of them, the ones that say that they're going to get you the most active users, I believe are using the API, and the API will allow you to pull UIDs. As far as taking those UIDs and using them for advertising, I don't know why else Facebook would make them available, but they do kind of contradict themselves there and say that, you shouldn't advertise to people that you don't have permission to advertise to. Now, do people do it? Yeah, they totally do it. I need to remove the .com. Oh yeah, on the YouTube channel. Is that what you're talking about? So, YouTube. Let me retype that. Thank you, Doug. More customers faster. If you want to, pull UIDs using software and putting it in there, I think that I will say that it's been done and people are still doing it. I don't want to openly endorse that because I don't want you to get in trouble on my behalf, but I do know that people are doing it without issues. Waldo is asking, did Facebook drop the Facebook email addresses? I don't know. I don't know if they did. I know that you were able to take like their Facebook username at facebook.com. Last I checked, I still had my Facebook email address. So, Waldo says, thanks for the training. I appreciate it. You're welcome. Richard asked, have you noticed any statistical difference using the new ad manager versus the old ad manager? You have to be more specific with that question. I haven't noticed any difference. No, not yet. But for the most part, I'll be honest, I don't really use the ad manager that much. I use the Power Editor and I use something called Quaya. Mike says, thank you. Great information. You're most welcome. All the webinar replays for the moment are going to be in my YouTube channel. So I will start adding them to the members area. Again, I need to get that done because I'm going to add, the slides, and at some point I'll do transcripts and all kinds of fun stuff. Mike says, where will it be in San Diego in April? It's going to be basically just outside of downtown. So like UTC, La Jolla, Scripps area. I have to find out where exactly we're going to hold it, but I'll send an email out. In fact, expect to get plenty of emails from me about that event. Trust me, you'll get plenty of invitations. Richard says, have you run the same ads before and after? What do you mean before and after? Before and after what, Richard? I need some clarification on that. Oh, the same ads as before and after with the different ad managers. Yeah, no, I have campaigns that have continued to run. I haven't, like stopped and started them, and they are working the same. I haven't seen any difference at all. Have you? I'm curious if you have. I'd like to know because that would be interesting. So far, I haven't seen any change. I think it's just a structural thing. I did notice that while they were implementing this change, I was having trouble getting my ads to get clicks. It's almost like their advertising engine was partially working or something, at least for placing new orders, because I was placing orders and not getting clicks. Yeah, yeah. So I think that's what it was, Richard, is that they were in the middle of doing this upgrade, and that's why, like a week or over the last 2 weeks or so, we were having a tough time getting traffic on new campaigns. But now everything seems to be fine. So okay, well, that's it. I mean, we're at the end of our 30 minutes here, as promised. I like to keep this quick and short and to the point. And next week, as I said, we're going to go into a little bit deeper stuff. We're going to talk about unpublished posts, and I will work to get this recording up today as soon as possible. And appreciate you guys taking the time to be here. I hope to see you next Thursday. If you're registered for this one, then you will most likely be automatically invited by GoToWebinar for next week's. But of course, you'll get emails from me as well. So if you're not getting those emails, then you probably didn't double opt in. I didn't tell you this, but I'm moving to Infusionsoft, and I think everyone who's registered on this webinar is in the Infusionsoft database. And if you remember and you get the double opt-in request or whatever email confirmation, please do that, because then it'll ensure that you get the email announcements. So that's it, and I'll see you later. Again, the YouTube channel for the recording is youtube.com/more customers faster. I'll post this recording, and you can also watch last week's webinar. So thanks again for being here, and with that, we will call it a day.